Welcome back to the channel once again. It is the LB podcast, and we are here today to discuss the World Cup. And we'll start our discussions off with Thomas Partey and the fact that he was denied entry into Canada and therefore would miss Ghana's first game in the World Cup against Panama. Stana, what do you make of the whole Thomas Partey situation? We'll also come back later and talk about the referee who was denied entry into the US. But with Thomas Partey, is this something that you expected to see? And are you surprised by this outcome?
Yeah, I am surprised, but we learned something new. Firstly, when I saw the report about Partey being denied entry into Canada, I was taken aback a bit because I felt Canada's policy when it comes to people come to that country a bit relatively loose than the US. And if the US are okay with Partey, then Canada would probably be okay with it too. But like I said, we learned something new every day. So it says that they have in their law that when you have a criminal case at the court, whether guilty or not guilty, whatever it be, they do have the right to either accept or deny you entry into their country. And evidently so, they have denied Partey entry into it. But it's just unfortunate that we as Ghanaians should have been more hands-on in dealing with the situation before it got to this stage. We should have known that because the law has been there, it's there already. So we should have known that this was what was at hand and try to know how to navigate it, whether we can find a solution to it or any which way we can find a solution so that it wouldn't come at this stage where we are a few days away from kickstarting our tournament. The World Cup has already begun, and the off-field issues would definitely not help us on field because even when there's nothing off field, the performances on the pitch aren't great. So when these things happen off field as well, it definitely won't serve as a positive for Guardians.
Yeah, it's going to affect the team, I think. But how do you think the team is going to react to this particular change? Because for all we know, the training sessions that the coach has implemented would have had Thomas Partey playing an important role in those training sessions while looking forward to the games. So now that he's out, how is that going to affect the dynamics of the team? And also, who do you think could come in to replace Partey and do a good job?
For once, I have no answer to this question, especially the last one. Who comes in to replace Partey? I have no idea who comes in to replace Thomas Partey. And in the last training session, I actually saw them practicing set pieces. And if you weren't born yesterday and you were born this current state, you know Thomas Partey knows quite a bit when it comes to set pieces because he's played for Arsenal. So he would have been a big threat because remember, Ghana scored 60% of our goals in the World Cup qualifiers through set pieces. And Thomas Partey usually got his head on some of those chances. So I think he would have been part of that because one thing is clear that if we have to score goals, set piece is one of our major strengths going into the World Cup. So evidently he would have been would have been key to whatever that we would do. Even aside the set pieces, he's our best midfielder. Even though he has struggled quite a bit at Villarreal in La Liga last season, but Partey is quite by far the best midfielder that we have in our team, and so missing him, especially when you don't plan to miss him, that is key. When you don't plan to miss him, he's been part of your preparations for all this while played in the qualifier, and now this will be a huge blow for Carlos Queiroz and whatever he plans to do with Thomas Partey in midfield. As to who replaces him, there's Caleb Urenchi, there's Elisha Owusu, there's Augustin Boache. I'm not too confident about the choices or the quality of players that we have at our disposal as to who would replace him.
Yeah, I'm also not sure really who can adequately replace Thomas Partey. But another thing that I wanted us to maybe pivot to is the fact that, do you think this would be used as an excuse if things don't go well for the Black Stars? Are you foreseeing that the GFA and the people close to the team, the coach, could use this as an excuse and say that, okay, one of our best players was not allowed to play in this game. He was going through all these issues, and therefore you can't really blame us for not performing. Are you seeing something like that potentially happening?
Yeah, he wasn't allowed to play because you did your job well. You didn't do your job well enough, and that is why Partey wasn't allowed to play in the first place. Let's say if they did their job well, even if Partey wouldn't have been allowed to play, we would have probably been adequately prepared for it. So you are the reason why we are short-handed, because Partey isn't playing, because you didn't do your job well. So that shouldn't be an excuse. But they will use it as an excuse. First of all, they will talk about if Ghana fail at the World Cup, especially if we do woefully. If we go out of the World Cup, I don't think it will be a shock to most Ghanaians. But if we do so woefully and disgracefully, like some people are expecting, they will go back to the manager being, and they will go back to the Thomas Partey issue about the allegations about him not being available to play for the team, and a whole host of others. But if we do advance, that is when you will see all sorts of narrative about the good job that they have done. So it is just about what happened. Whatever happens, they will find a place, some way, somehow to get out of it.
Yeah. When it comes to Thomas Partey being included in the squad,
Yeah.
do you think he should have been included in the first place? Because I think all this noise is not good for the team. And
Yeah.
given that our preparations wasn't really the best going into the tournament in the first place, having all this noise surrounding the team could really be detrimental to how successful the team is. Do you think he should have been included? With hindsight, of course, before this, we probably didn't envisage something like this happen. But with hindsight, do you think he should have been maybe excused or given the time off and someone else coming?
Yeah, I think you make a good point with bringing in hindsight. If we knew this, all these brouhaha happening of the pitch would happen if Partey was included in the team, it was probably best if we left him out. Of course, Partey is Ghanaian, so I know people would say, what happens to Partey because he hasn't been convicted of any crime. So why would we do such a thing? But we have to think about the team first of all. That what does the team need? Will this help the team in any way positively on the field? This wouldn't. It would definitely not help the team in any way on the field. And so if we could have avoided it, we probably should have. But I don't think we could have envisaged all these things happening at this moment in time. I think, again, slightly we might have underestimated the gravitas of the whole situation. Because when Partey left England, him playing for Villarreal toned it down a little bit. But when immediately we were in the same group with England, maybe we should have foreseen some of these things that the English often do this. I remember in 2022, they wanted to pull another stunt about the LGBT thing in Qatar, and later on, I think they were forced to boycott that. So the English try and always play a publicity stunt one way or the other when it comes to these sort of things. So we probably should have foreseen it coming. And so I think if we could have avoided it, knowing that these things would be a probability or could be a possibility that this would happen, we should have probably pulled Partey out of the squad. When in pulling him out of the squad, it wouldn't just help the Black Stars focus on things on the pitch. It would also probably help Partey as well, because all these things happening wouldn't also help Partey even if he plays. He's a human being. His mental health is at stake, and so I don't even think he would be in the right frame of mind. As to his quality on the pitch, we would miss him greatly, because even though he hasn't been on top form, he's still our best midfielder. So that is why I'm not so hard on them bringing Partey into the squad, because we needed Partey's quality. But the things surrounding it, I don't think it's worth Partey being in the squad if we knew that all these things could happen.
Yeah, yeah. I think that this is it's a whole lot, because when you leave him out of the squad, you are doomed. When you don't leave him out of the squad, people are going to blame you for all this
Yeah,
noise. So suppose they had left him out of the squad, many Ghanaians would have said that, one, we ourselves are not backing him as a
yeah,
country, and we are probably judging him. That is why
yeah,
we left him out. And secondly, it would also mean that we are losing on his quality that he could have offered to the
yeah,
team. And there's going to be a whole lot of critics who would say that he's still our best midfielder. He's better than all the guys that we have available and all that. So there's no way to win here. The GFA or the coach of the Black Stars was in a lose-lose situation. And I think that
yeah.
is why we find ourselves here. So let's see what will happen. We'll come back and maybe discuss how the impact of Partey's inclusion in the squad
Mm.
has been, maybe after Ghana has played a couple of games, and we'll see how to go about that. But let's move on quickly to the Somalian referee who was also denied entry into the US. I think it also came as a surprise for many of us, many football fans. But do you see the merits of the US doing what they did, or do you think this is something that could have easily been granted an exception, given the reputation of the referee and all that?
Um, I don't. Every country has their rules and how they want to accept people who come into their country, and rightly so. If they believe that the referee doesn't meet the requirements, or the country he originates from, they have an issue with that country, and so citizens coming from there wouldn't be allowed into their country. Fair play to them. They say, or
Mm,
reports say, that he has ties with some terrorist organization. There's no even evidence of that. And my major concern is about FIFA as an organization. FIFA as an organization bringing or appointing a Somalian referee to referee at the World Cup should know that if you are appointing an official who comes from a country that has an issue with the US, and nobody can tell me they do not know, they do know. And so if you do know that these are the things that the country that is hosting the World Cup, they have an issue in terms of having issues with some country, then don't appoint a referee from Somalia. But if you do, then you need to make sure that there are things in place in order to accommodate the referee. Either in appointing the referee, then you know that, okay, if I'm appointing such a referee, then means he probably might not be allowed to enter the US. Okay, then I'll put him in Mexico, I'll put him in Canada, or I wouldn't appoint him at all. But if you do appoint him, then it's your responsibility. You need to make sure that you liaison with the people of authority, with the, because there are three host countries, so you are scored for choice. So there are ways around that. You can let the Somalian referee be at the tournament, and then it also looks like there's a bit of hypocrisy when it comes to FIFA, because in 2023, when Indonesia was supposed to host the under 20 tournament in Indonesia, Indonesia also has issues with Israel, and they didn't allow Israel to come into Indonesia as a country to play the World Cup. Indonesia was stripped of the tournament and given to Argentina because they refused to accept a country that are qualified for the tournament. So if the United States also refused to accept a country like Iran to their country, and then you give an award called the Nobel, what's it called, the Nobel Peace Prize. I think I've got the name right. You give
the
such an award
Nobel
to the President
Peace
of the United
Prize.
States. Yeah, thank you. You give such an award to him when just a few a few months back, that country that you just awarded their president the peace prize invaded another country called Iran. He invaded another country. Let me take you back a bit. A few years ago, and this led to Roman Abramovich losing his ownership of Chelsea when Ukraine was invaded by Russia. Russia was banned by FIFA. They couldn't compete in any tournament. Their teams were stripped off from competing in the Champions League. Even at the Olympics, their athletes were banned from being labeled as Russian athletes. They were using different. So there's a hypocrisy when it comes to FIFA and the way that they've done things at this tournament. And then you look at the referee. Then later on, you hear that UEFA has appointed that Somalian referee to referee the soccer final. Splendid. I am super excited for the referee because when it comes to not being able to referee at the World Cup, he spent 10 years of his career preparing himself to get to this position, and he misses out at the World Cup. The next biggest thing is probably the Champions League, or so the Super Cup is very widely so among the elite competitions that a referee would dream to referee. So fair play to him for getting that, and I'm happy for him. But this is just surface level. You look at it and say, what does UEFA gain in appointing the Somali referee to referee their game? Very clearly, you would see that it's just a direct phone call from UEFA to do them this favor so that the criticism that they are facing as an organization, it comes down a little bit. At least UEFA will come in and rescue them and give the Somalian referee a match to officiate so that the tensions calm down a bit. It is very clear. You can see it through all the way. So I am not so over the moon
Is it not also because UEFA stands to gain something from making that appointment as well?
You have to explain that part.
Yeah, because UEFA is also going to benefit off the noise around this referee, right? So the fact that he's been denied entry into the US, it's become big news. And so when they appoint him to ref the UEFA Super Cup game, all eyes are going to be on that game. People are going to want to see the performance of Omar Atta. So it's going to bring more eyes than probably we would have seen if this referee wasn't appointed. So I also think it's a win-win situation for UEFA. That is why they've also kind of rode on this bandwagon to try and get some more traction for the UEFA
last
Super
thing
Cup
that
game.
absolutely infuriates me is the cooling break. We are playing a football game, and I don't know if you've noticed, but none of the games actually kick off at the exact time. If it is 5 p.m. Ghana time, the match is kicking off at like 5:05 or 5:06. This is the first time I'm seeing this, and it's consistent, not just one game. I saw it in the opening ceremony, South Africa versus Mexico, and I felt maybe the opening ceremony, it is very difficult to keep up with the timing, but it kept on happening. And then you know that it is you at first, maybe you think that, oh wow, for the very first time, FIFA or the organization is actually thinking about player welfare and the well-being of players by giving them a cooling break. But the cooling break happens, and there's a commercial break. They go on advert, and even one of the games, I heard that the referee couldn't replay, couldn't restart play because Fox TV hadn't returned from the commercial break. That is absolutely ridiculous. The referee couldn't restart play because Fox TV hadn't returned from the commercial break, so had to wait a while. He waited, and then they were still not back, so he was forced to restart play. So we thinking, oh right, for once in a while, they're actually thinking about the players and the people that play the beautiful game. But no, it is still about the commercialization. It's still all about money at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think we also need to be fair here because yes, they are thinking about the money. They are taking advantage of the cooling break to do commercials. But the thing is, it also helps the players. So let's acknowledge both sides of the situation. Yes, FIFA is going to get more money by doing advertisement in that short period. The players are also going to get some time to breathe and come back into the game because the same people who are complaining about, I have seen a statement from Klopp criticizing this particular thing, but Klopp is the same person who was always on about players not getting enough rest. Now they are being given basically a 5-minute break in between games,
Mm,
and you still don't want it because FIFA is making money out of it. So I think sometimes we need to acknowledge both sides. They know that the
well,
cooling break is necessary for the players, but at the same time they've seen an opportunity to make more money,
mm,
and that is what is going on.
well,
So
well.
um
The saying goes, if you pray for rain, you gotta deal with the mud too. So this is the mud that
yeah,
we have to deal with. I guess you
exactly.
have a point.
So yeah, yeah, that is true. So let's end our video here. We'll catch you all later on. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new here. Also like the video, and don't forget to comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. See ya.